Welcome, weary traveller, to this gentle journey through time where we'll drift together into the vast steppes of medieval Asia and discover the surprisingly intricate world of Mongol nomadic life. Tonight, we're stepping away from the thundering hooves of conquest and the clash of empires to explore something far more intimate and peaceful. The daily rhythms that sustain the greatest nomadic civilization the world has ever known. Whether you're settling in for the evening or simply seeking a moment of tranquil storytelling, I'm grateful you've chosen to spend this quiet time with me as we unfold the remarkable tapestry of how ordinary Mongol families actually lived, worked, and thrived on the endless grasslands. Picture yourself in the year 1220, standing on a wind-swept plateau somewhere in what we now call Mongolia. The morning sun casts long shadows across rolling hills, covered in silver-green grass that stretches to every horizon. In the distance, thin columns of smoke rise from cooking fires, marking the presence of a small nomadic camp where perhaps 30 families have gathered for a few precious weeks of summer grazing. The air carries the scent of burning, dried dung, the universal fuel of the steppes, mixed with the earthy aroma of horses and the sweet fragrance of wild herbs crushed beneath countless hooves. As we approach this temporary settlement, the first thing that strikes us is not the chaos one might expect from a mobile community, but rather an almost choreographed sense of order and purpose. Each circular felt tent, called a jer, sits positioned with mathematical precision, its doorway facing south to catch the maximum warmth from the winter sun and deflect the bitter northern winds that can sweep across these plains with devastating force. The camp itself follows patterns passed down through countless generations, with the most senior family's jer occupying the western edge, the position of honor, while younger families arrange themselves in a careful hierarchy that speaks to the complex social structures underlying this seemingly simple way of life. The morning routine begins before dawn, with the soft sounds of women emerging from their warm tents to tend the fires that must never be allowed to die completely. These fires represent more than mere sources of heat and cooking. They embody the spiritual heart of each family, the sacred flame that connects the living with their ancestors and ensures the continuity of the household. A Mongol wife approaches her fire pit with the reverence of a priestess, carefully adding dried sheep dung and twisted grass to coax the embers back to life, her movements practiced and efficient after years of repetition. Inside the jers, families wake to a world perfectly adapted to nomadic existence. The circular structure, with its latticed wooden walls and felt covering, can be assembled or disassembled by a skilled family in less than an hour, yet provides remarkable protection against the extreme weather that defines steppe life. The interior space follows strict cultural rules about placement and movement, with the area immediately opposite the door reserved for honoured guests and family treasures, while the right side belongs to the women and children, and the left to the men and their equipment. The furnishings reflect both practicality and surprising sophistication. Wooden chests painted in bright colours hold the family's most precious possessions. Silk garments received as gifts from trading expeditions, silver ornaments passed down through generations, and carefully wrapped bundles of dried meat that represent wealth and security in this harsh environment. Thick felt carpets cover the floor, providing insulation against the cold earth while creating a space of genuine comfort and beauty. These carpets, woven by the women during long winter evenings, display intricate patterns that tell stories of family history, tribal affiliations, and spiritual beliefs. As the sun climbs higher, the camp stirs to full activity with the organized efficiency of a well-rehearsed performance. Children emerge from the jers like small explosions of energy, their faces bright with the anticipation of another day spent in the vast playground of the steppes. But this is not idle play. Mongol children begin learning essential survival skills almost as soon as they can walk, and every game, every activity serves the larger purpose of preparing them for the demanding life of nomadic herders. The youngest children, Those between 3 and 7 years old spend their mornings helping their mothers with the lighter tasks around camp. They gather dry dung for fuel, a job that might seem unpleasant to sedentary peoples, but represents an honoured contribution to family survival on the steppes where wood is scarce and precious. These children learn to identify the best quality dung by its colour and texture, understanding that the droppings of different animals burn with different intensities and produce varying amounts of heat. This knowledge, passed down through generations of nomadic wisdom, ensures that no family ever lacks fuel for cooking or warmth. The women of the camp begin their complex daily choreography of food preparation, animal care, and household management with skills that would impress any modern efficiency expert. A Mongol wife must be simultaneously a veterinarian, a food preservation specialist, a textile manufacturer, and a nutritionist, all while maintaining the mobility that defines nomadic life. Her day begins with milking the mares, ewes, and goats that provide the family with the dairy products forming the foundation of steppe cuisine. This morning, milking ritual reveals the sophisticated understanding these nomads possessed regarding animal husbandry and nutrition. The timing must be precise. Too early, and the animals resist. Too late, and the day's heat affects the quality of the milk. The women work with quiet efficiency, their hands moving in practiced rhythms as they extract the white liquid that will be transformed through various processes into the dozens of different dairy products that sustain nomadic life throughout the year. The milk collected each morning undergoes immediate processing to prevent spoilage in the often intense heat of summer days. Some is set aside for immediate consumption, mixed with tea to create the salty, energizing drink that serves as liquid sustenance throughout long days of travel or herding. Other portions are poured into leather bags where natural fermentation processes, carefully controlled through techniques refined over centuries, transform the sweet milk into airag, the mildly alcoholic mare's milk that serves both nutritional and ceremonial purposes in Mongol society. Meanwhile, the men of the camp engage in their own essential morning activities, primarily centered around the care and management of the vast herds that represent not just wealth, but survival itself in this challenging environment. A typical family might own several hundred animals: horses for transportation and warfare, cattle for milk and meat, sheep for wool and sustenance, goats for their hardy adaptability to harsh conditions, and perhaps a few two-humped Bactrian camels for carrying the heaviest loads during seasonal migrations. The relationship between the Mongol herders and their animals transcends simple ownership. It represents a partnership forged through mutual dependence and deep understanding. A skilled herder can identify individual animals among hundreds by subtle differences in gait, coloration, or behavior. He knows which mare produces the sweetest milk, which stallion possesses the stamina for long-distance travel, and which sheep carry the finest wool for winter garments. This intimate knowledge, accumulated through lifetimes of close observation, enables nomadic families to survive and prosper in conditions that would quickly defeat less experienced peoples. The horses receive particular attention during these morning hours, for they represent the foundation upon which all Mongol life rests. Each family member over the age of 5 owns personal horses selected for specific purposes: swift geldings for daily herding work, sturdy mares for long-distance travel, and perhaps 1 or 2 specially trained war horses that serve as insurance against the periodic conflicts that punctuate steppe life. The morning horse care follows rituals as precise as any religious ceremony, with careful inspection of hooves, manes, and general condition, followed by the selection of appropriate animals for the day's planned activities. As the morning progresses and the initial tasks are completed, the camp settles into the rhythms that will carry them through another day on the endless grasslands. The older children mount their horses and ride out to check on the grazing herds, their young eyes scanning the horizon for signs of predators, weather changes, or the approach of strangers. These children, some barely 10 years old, display riding skills that would impress cavalry officers in any sedentary army. Their bodies moving in perfect harmony with their mounts as they navigate the rolling terrain with unconscious grace. The teenage boys and young men prepare for the more demanding work of the day, moving the herds to fresh grazing areas, searching for animals that may have wandered during the night, and maintaining the constant vigilance required to protect valuable livestock from the wolves, snow leopards, and human raiders that represent persistent threats to nomadic prosperity. Their equipment reflects generations of refinement, perfectly balanced bows capable of accurate shooting from horseback, lassos crafted from the finest horsehair, and curved knives designed for everything from butchering animals to defending the family in emergencies. The women continue their own essential work, much of which focuses on the endless task of processing and preserving food for the lean winter months ahead. Summer represents not just a time of plenty, but a crucial period for accumulating the preserved foods that will sustain the family when fresh resources become scarce. The techniques they employ reveal sophisticated understanding of nutrition, preservation chemistry, and resource management that enabled nomadic peoples to thrive in environments where agricultural societies would quickly perish. The preparation of winter meat stores begins during these abundant summer months, with processes that would fascinate any modern food scientist. Strips of mutton and beef are carefully cut along the grain to maximize surface area for drying, then hung on wooden racks positioned to catch the constant steppe winds while remaining protected from direct rainfall. The women monitor these drying operations with the attention of master craftsmen, adjusting the position of meat strips throughout the day to ensure even dehydration and prevent spoilage that could doom a family to starvation during the brutal winter months. The making of arul, the rock-hard, dried curds that serve as portable protein sources, follows recipes refined through countless generations of nomadic wisdom. Fresh curds are shaped by hand into uniform pieces, then spread on felt mats where the intense summer sun and dry air gradually extract every drop of moisture, transforming what begins as soft cheese into durable nuggets that can last for months without refrigeration. These preserved foods represent more than mere sustenance. They embody the difference between survival and death during the harsh seasons when fresh food becomes impossible to obtain. The social dynamics of camp life reveal themselves most clearly during the midday rest period, when the intense heat forces both humans and animals to seek shade and conserve energy. Families gather in the cooler spaces between jers, where the women continue their endless textile work while engaging in the conversations that bind the community together. Their fingers move with automatic precision as they spin wool into thread using simple drop spindles, the rhythmic motion serving as accompaniment to discussions about weather patterns, animal behavior, and the complex network of relationships that connect nomadic families across vast distances. These conversations serve purposes far beyond mere entertainment, functioning as vital information networks that enable nomadic communities to coordinate their movements and respond to changing conditions across the steppes. A casual mention that wolves were spotted near a particular valley might influence grazing decisions for multiple families, while observations about unusual weather patterns could prompt early preparations for seasonal migrations. The women, often dismissed by outside observers as having secondary status in nomadic society, actually serve as the primary conduits for this essential flow of information that keeps scattered communities functioning as coherent social units. The afternoon hours bring renewed activity as the day's heat begins to subside, and both humans and animals prepare for the evening's work. The herders who spent the morning checking distant pastures begin returning to camp, their approach announced by the distinctive calls they use to communicate across the vast open spaces. These vocal signals, as complex and nuanced as any spoken language, convey information about herd conditions, weather observations, and potential hazards with remarkable efficiency. The young men practice their warrior skills during these afternoon hours, Understanding that military prowess remains essential for survival in a world where conflicts over grazing rights, water sources, and trading opportunities can erupt without warning. Their training focuses not on individual combat techniques, but on the coordinated mounted maneuvers that made Mongol military forces so devastatingly effective. They race their horses across the grasslands in complex formations, each rider maintaining perfect position relative to his companions while shooting arrows at targets that simulate enemy warriors. These practice sessions reveal the sophisticated tactical thinking that underlies nomadic military success. The riders learn to coordinate their movements through subtle horse signals and vocal calls, creating the seamless unit cohesion that enabled relatively small nomadic forces to defeat much larger sedentary armies. The skills they develop serve double purposes, enhancing their effectiveness both as herders, managing scattered livestock, and as warriors defending their families against external threats. The women use these afternoon hours for the intricate craftwork that produces the beautiful objects that fill nomadic homes with color and artistic expression. Their looms, portable devices that can be quickly disassembled for transport, create carpets and wall hangings that rival the finest products of sedentary workshops. The patterns they weave carry deep cultural significance, with specific designs indicating family lineages, tribal affiliations, and spiritual beliefs that connect the nomads to their ancestral heritage. The preparation of felt, that miraculous material that makes nomadic life possible, requires coordination between multiple families and represents one of the most impressive technological achievements of steppe civilization. The process begins with the careful selection and cleaning of sheep wool, followed by the laborious task of arranging the fibers in precise layers that will determine the final felt's thickness and durability. Hot water, soap made from animal fat and ash, and enormous amounts of coordinated physical labor gradually transform loose wool into the dense, waterproof material that protects nomadic families from the extremes of steppe weather. The felt-making process serves important social functions beyond its practical purposes, bringing families together in cooperative work projects that strengthen community bonds while producing essential materials. Young women learn the intricate techniques through participation in these group efforts, acquiring not just technical skills, but also the social connections that will support them throughout their lives. The finished felt represents more than mere building material. It embodies the collective effort and shared knowledge that enables nomadic communities to thrive in challenging environments. As evening approaches, the camp prepares for the daily ritual of bringing the scattered herds back to the safety of the settlement for nighttime protection. The older children and teenagers mount their horses and ride out across the grasslands, using practice calls and coordinated movements to gather animals that may have wandered several miles from camp during the day's grazing. This gathering process requires intimate knowledge of animal behavior and terrain features, as herders must anticipate where different species are likely to be found, based on weather conditions, grass quality, and water availability. The return of the herds transforms the quiet afternoon camp into a bustling center of activity as hundreds of animals converge on the settlement in carefully organized groups. Horses arrive first, their natural speed and intelligence making them easiest to manage, followed by cattle moving in their characteristic steady procession. Then sheep and goats in woolly masses that seem to flow like living rivers across the landscape. The herders position themselves strategically around the approaching animals, using their horses and voices to guide the livestock into designated areas around the camp, where they can be protected from predators during the vulnerable nighttime hours. The evening milking begins as soon as the animals settle into their assigned areas, with the women moving efficiently between different species to collect the milk that will provide essential nutrition and serve as the basis for the next day's dairy processing. This second milking of the day requires different techniques than the morning collection, as the animals are tired from their day of grazing and movement, requiring gentle handling to ensure cooperation. The women sing softly to the animals during this process, using traditional melodies that seem to have a calming effect on livestock that have spent their day navigating the often stressful environment of the open steppes. The preparation of the evening meal represents the culmination of the day's food gathering and processing activities, as families transform the products of their herds into the nourishing cuisine that sustains nomadic life. The cooking methods, refined through centuries of nomadic experience, maximize nutritional value while minimizing fuel consumption, a crucial consideration in an environment where combustible materials remain scarce and precious. Mutton and beef are prepared using techniques that preserve every bit of nutritional value, with nothing wasted from the precious animals that represent the foundation of nomadic wealth. The evening gathering around family fires serves social and educational purposes that extend far beyond simple meal consumption. Grandparents share stories that preserve historical knowledge and cultural values, their narratives weaving together entertainment with essential information about survival techniques, weather patterns, and the complex network of relationships that bind nomadic communities together across vast geographical distances. Children listen with rapt attention to tales of legendary horses, heroic ancestors, and the supernatural beings that inhabit the spiritual landscape of the steppes. Landscape of the steppes. The young adults of the camp gather in small groups around these evening fires, their conversations mixing practical planning with the timeless concerns of youth finding their place in the world. The unmarried men discuss horses with the passionate intensity that only comes from those whose very survival depends upon the quality of their mounts, while young women share observations about textile techniques and animal care that will serve them throughout their nomadic lives. These informal exchanges represent a crucial component of nomadic education, as knowledge passes from one generation to the next through casual conversation rather than formal instruction. The matchmaking activities that occur during these evening gatherings follow protocols as complex as any diplomatic negotiation, with families carefully evaluating potential alliances based on considerations that extend far beyond simple attraction. A successful nomadic marriage must unite not just two individuals, but two extended networks of relatives, animals, and territorial claims that will affect multiple generations. Parents observe the behavior and skills of potential partners for their children, noting everything from riding ability to skill at animal care to the subtle indicators of character that determine success or failure in the demanding environment of steppe life. The evening tasks continue long after the formal meal concludes, as families prepare for the vulnerabilities that come with darkness on the open grasslands. The men check weapons and inspect the animals one final time, their eyes scanning the surrounding terrain for any signs of the predators or human raiders that represent constant threats to nomadic prosperity. The horses receive particular attention during this final inspection, as their alertness and speed provide the primary defense against dangers that might emerge from the vast darkness surrounding each small camp. The women organize the interior spaces of their jers for nighttime efficiency, arranging bedding and essential items in patterns that allow for quick response to emergencies while maintaining the comfort necessary for restorative sleep. Children learn to prepare their own sleeping areas according to traditional arrangements that reflect both practical considerations and cultural beliefs about proper behavior within the sacred space of the family dwelling. These preparations follow rituals passed down through countless generations, each movement serving specific purposes related to safety, comfort, and spiritual protection. The storytelling that fills the hours between sunset and sleep serves educational purposes that modern societies accomplish through formal schools and written materials. Elderly family members recite epic poems that preserve historical knowledge about tribal migrations, legendary battles, and the genealogies that determine social status and marriage possibilities within nomadic society. These oral traditions carry practical information disguised as entertainment, teaching young listeners about geography, weather patterns, animal behavior, and survival techniques through memorable narratives that stick in memory far more effectively than abstract instruction. The spiritual practices that conclude each day reveal the complex relationship between nomadic peoples and the natural forces that dominate their existence. Families make small offerings to the spirits that inhabit their immediate environment, placing bits of food or drops of airag in designated locations around their jers to ensure continued protection and prosperity. These rituals acknowledge the nomads' understanding of their dependence upon forces beyond human control, while also asserting their right to inhabit and use the resources of the steppes through proper respect and reciprocity. The night watch rotation begins as darkness settles over the camp, with designated individuals taking responsibility for monitoring the herds and watching for approaching dangers during the vulnerable hours when most of the community sleeps. These guards position themselves strategically around the settlement, their locations chosen to provide optimal visibility while remaining close enough to raise alarms if threats materialize. The watch duty rotates among all able-bodied adults, ensuring that no individual bears an unfair burden while maintaining the constant vigilance necessary for survival in an environment where relaxation of security measures can lead to devastating losses. The sounds that fill the nighttime hours on the steppes create a natural symphony that experienced nomads read like a detailed weather report and security bulletin. The distant howling of wolves indicates the presence of predators that might threaten livestock, while the calls of nightbirds provide information about weather changes and the movement of other animal populations. The horses, with their superior hearing and instinctive awareness of danger, serve as early warning systems that alert human guards to potential threats long before they become visible in the darkness. The morning routine begins anew before the first light appears on the eastern horizon, as the eternal cycle of nomadic life continues its ancient rhythm across the endless grasslands. The women emerge from their warm jers to tend fires that have been carefully banked to survive the night, their movements automatic after years of repetition in the demanding environment that shapes every aspect of steppe existence. The process of awakening the camp follows patterns established through generations of nomadic wisdom, with each task performed in its proper sequence to ensure maximum efficiency and minimum waste of precious daylight hours. The seasonal migrations that define nomadic existence require planning and coordination that would challenge modern logistics experts, as entire communities must move hundreds or thousands of animals across vast distances while maintaining social cohesion and ensuring adequate supplies for survival during the journey. These migrations follow ancient routes passed down through tribal memory, with each stopping point chosen for specific advantages related to water availability, grass quality, and protection from weather extremes that can devastate unprepared travelers. The preparation for seasonal movement begins weeks before the actual departure, as families gradually consume perishable foods, repair equipment, and organize their possessions for efficient transport. The women work intensively during this preparation period, completing textile projects that cannot be easily transported, while ensuring that adequate supplies of preserved foods are ready for the journey ahead. The men focus on animal care and equipment maintenance, understanding that mechanical failures or animal injuries during migration can threaten family survival in the harsh environment between seasonal camps. The decision to begin migration requires careful evaluation of multiple factors, including weather patterns, grass conditions at destination areas, and the complex political relationships that determine access to particular territories during different seasons. Tribal leaders consult with shamans and elderly advisors, whose accumulated wisdom guides communities through the dangerous transitions between seasonal grazing areas, while scouts travel ahead to gather current information about conditions along planned routes. The actual movement of a nomadic camp resembles a carefully choreographed military operation, with specific families assigned responsibility for different aspects of the complex logistics, involved in relocating entire communities across hundreds of miles of challenging terrain. The strongest animals carry the heaviest loads, while pregnant mares and cattle receive special protection from the stresses of long-distance travel. Children and elderly family members ride in specially designed carts that provide comfort and safety during the demanding journey, while able-bodied adults manage the herds, and handle the inevitable problems that arise during large-scale movement across unpredictable terrain. The evening camps established during migration follow different patterns than permanent seasonal settlements, with emphasis placed on quick assembly and efficient protection, rather than the more elaborate arrangements possible during stable periods. Families work together with remarkable coordination to establish temporary communities that provide security and comfort for a single night before the journey continues toward distant grazing areas. These overnight stops require careful selection based on water availability, defensibility, and grass quality for the hundreds of animals that must be maintained throughout the migration process. The trading activities that occur when different nomadic groups encounter each other during seasonal movements serve economic functions that extend far beyond simple commercial exchange. These meetings provide opportunities for families to acquire goods unavailable in their immediate territories, while also facilitating the social interactions that maintain connections between scattered communities. Young people meet potential marriage partners from different tribal groups, while elders exchange information about weather patterns, grazing conditions, and political developments that affect nomadic communities across vast geographical areas. The specialized knowledge required for successful nomadic life encompasses skills that sedentary peoples often fail to appreciate or understand. A competent nomadic herder must serve simultaneously as veterinarian, meteorologist, navigator, and diplomat, while also possessing the military skills necessary for defending family and livestock against various threats. The women must master equally complex skills related to food preservation, textile production, childcare, and household management, all while maintaining the mobility that defines nomadic existence. The educational system that produces these remarkably capable individuals operates through constant hands-on experience rather than formal classroom instruction, with children absorbing essential knowledge through participation in daily activities that prepare them for adult responsibilities. A 5-year-old child already understands basic animal behavior and weather signs, while teenagers possess riding and herding skills that would require years of training for adults raised in sedentary societies. This practical education system produces individuals capable of thriving in environments that would quickly overwhelm people lacking such specialized knowledge and experience. The technological innovations developed by nomadic peoples reflect centuries of refinement aimed at maximizing efficiency while maintaining mobility in challenging environments. Their saddles, bridles, and horse equipment represent engineering solutions that balance weight considerations with durability requirements, producing gear that enables remarkably effective control of horses during the demanding activities required for successful herding and warfare. The portable tools used for crafts, cooking, and equipment maintenance demonstrate similar innovation in design, with each item serving multiple purposes, while remaining light enough for easy transport during frequent migrations. The medical knowledge possessed by nomadic peoples encompasses both practical techniques for treating injuries and illnesses common in their environment, and sophisticated understanding of the medicinal properties of plants and animal products available on the steppes. Nomadic healers develop expertise in treating everything from riding injuries to digestive problems caused by the limited diet available during harsh seasons, using remedies derived from their intimate knowledge of natural resources. This medical tradition combines practical experience with spiritual beliefs that view healing as involving both physical treatment and restoration of proper relationships between patients and the supernatural forces that govern health and prosperity. The seasonal cycles that govern nomadic life create rhythms as predictable as ocean tides, yet require constant adaptation to survive the subtle variations that distinguish one year from another. The elders of each camp carry within their memories detailed knowledge of weather patterns spanning decades, understanding that successful navigation of seasonal transitions depends upon recognizing the small signs that indicate whether the coming winter will be mild or severe, whether spring will arrive early or late, and whether summer rainfall will provide abundant grass or force difficult decisions about grazing territories. The winter camps represent the most challenging period of nomadic existence, when families must survive for months in fixed locations while bitter winds and deep snow transform the steppes into landscapes that test human endurance to its absolute limits. The preparation for winter begins during the previous summer, with the careful selection of protected valleys or south-facing slopes that provide natural shelter from the devastating winds that can drive temperatures to levels that freeze exposed flesh within minutes. These winter locations are chosen through knowledge accumulated over generations, with each site evaluated for its ability to provide adequate protection while maintaining access to water sources that will not freeze completely during the harshest months. The construction of winter shelters requires modifications to the standard GR design that enhance insulation while maintaining structural integrity under the weight of accumulated snow and the stress of extreme temperature fluctuations. Additional layers of felt are added to the exterior walls, while the interior arrangements are reorganized to concentrate warmth around central heating areas, where carefully rationed fuel must provide life-sustaining heat throughout the long, dark months. The smoke holes at the apex of each jar are fitted with adjustable covers that allow precise control of ventilation while preventing heat loss that could prove fatal during blizzard conditions. The animal shelters constructed for winter protection demonstrate nomadic engineering skills that rival the achievements of sedentary societies in their practical effectiveness and efficient use of available materials. Windbreaks built from stones, dried dung, and whatever wood can be gathered provide crucial protection for livestock whose survival directly determines whether families will emerge from winter with the resources necessary to resume nomadic life in spring. These shelters are positioned to take advantage of natural terrain features while providing easy access for the daily care that keeps animals alive during periods when natural forage becomes completely unavailable. The food storage systems developed for winter survival reveal sophisticated understanding of preservation chemistry and nutrition that enables nomadic families to maintain health and strength during months when fresh food becomes impossible to obtain. Underground storage pits lined with stones and sealed with layers of felt preserve frozen meat throughout the winter months, while carefully constructed drying racks, protected from moisture, maintain supplies of dried dairy products and preserved vegetables gathered during the brief summer growing season. The careful rationing of these stored foods requires mathematical precision that balances immediate nutritional needs against the uncertain duration of winter conditions. The social dynamics within winter camps intensify as families spend months in close proximity, while external activities become severely limited by weather conditions. The long, dark evenings provide extended opportunities for storytelling, craft work, and the transmission of cultural knowledge that might be compressed or omitted during the busy summer months when survival activities consume most available time and energy. The winter months serve as an intensive period of education for children who spend hours listening to the accumulated wisdom of their elders while developing skills that will serve them throughout their nomadic lives. The craft work that fills winter hours produces the beautiful objects that distinguish nomadic material culture and provide families with trade goods that can be exchanged for essential items unavailable on the steppes. The women create intricate embroidered garments using silk threads acquired through trade networks that span vast distances, their needlework incorporating traditional designs that carry deep spiritual significance while demonstrating individual artistic skill. The men craft weapons and tools during these winter months, using techniques passed down through generations to produce bows, arrows, and knives that combine functional excellence with aesthetic beauty. The spiritual practices that sustain nomadic communities through the psychological challenges of winter isolation reflect deep understanding of the mental fortitude required to survive months of confinement in harsh conditions. Daily rituals acknowledge the supernatural forces that govern weather and seasonal change, while family ceremonies strengthen the bonds that hold communities together during periods when external pressures might otherwise fragment social cohesion. The shamanic traditions that provide spiritual guidance during winter months serve both religious and psychological functions, offering frameworks for understanding suffering while maintaining hope for eventual renewal and return to normal nomadic patterns. The breeding programs that nomadic herders conduct during winter months demonstrate sophisticated understanding of animal genetics and reproductive timing that maximizes the survival chances of newborn animals while ensuring optimal characteristics in the next generation of livestock. The careful selection of breeding pairs takes into account not only obvious physical traits, but also subtle behavioral characteristics that determine an animal's suitability for specific roles within the complex nomadic economy. Pregnant mares and cattle receive special care during winter months, with the best available shelter and food reserves allocated to ensuring successful births that will strengthen family herds when spring migration becomes possible. The emergence from winter camps represents one of the most joyous occasions in nomadic life, as families that have survived months of hardship and isolation reunite with other communities while animals regain access to the fresh grass that provides the foundation for renewed prosperity. The first migrations of spring follow careful schedules that balance the animal's desperate need for fresh forage against the dangers of traveling too early when late blizzards might catch exposed herds in vulnerable positions. The scouts who venture out to assess conditions for spring migration risk their lives to gather information that determines whether their communities will survive the dangerous transition from winter survival to renewed nomadic activity. The spring calving season brings both opportunities and challenges, as newborn animals represent valuable additions to family wealth, while requiring intensive care that strains resources already depleted by winter survival. The women who serve as midwives for birthing animals possess knowledge that combines practical veterinary skills with traditional beliefs about the spiritual forces that govern reproduction and new life. The survival rate of newborn animals during these crucial spring weeks often determines whether families will prosper or struggle throughout the coming year, making animal care during this period one of the most critical aspects of nomadic survival. The reunion ceremonies that mark the gathering of scattered families after winter separation serve important functions in re-establishing social bonds and sharing information that affects community survival and prosperity. These gatherings provide opportunities for families to assess the condition of their relatives and neighbours while exchanging news about winter losses, successful survival strategies, and observations about environmental changes that might affect future planning. The marriages that are often celebrated during these spring reunions strengthen ties between families while ensuring that genetic diversity is maintained within nomadic communities. The trading expeditions that begin with spring migration connect nomadic communities to the broader networks of commerce that span the Asian continent, providing access to goods that cannot be produced on the steppes, while offering markets for the animal products that represent nomadic wealth. These trading relationships require diplomatic skills and cultural knowledge that enable nomadic merchants to navigate the complex political and social environments of sedentary societies while maintaining the independence that defines their way of life. The profits from successful trading ventures provide families with luxury goods and essential items that enhance both comfort and survival capabilities. The military activities that resume with spring mobility serve defensive and offensive purposes that protect nomadic interests while providing opportunities for acquiring wealth through conquest and tribute collection. The young men who have spent winter months in intensive weapons practice emerge ready for the raiding expeditions that supplement nomadic resources while demonstrating the martial skills that deter potential enemies. These military activities follow seasonal patterns that coordinate with migration schedules and breeding cycles, ensuring that warrior activities do not interfere with the herding obligations that provide the foundation for nomadic survival. The environmental knowledge that guides nomadic decision-making encompasses detailed understanding of ecological relationships that connect weather patterns, grass growth cycles, animal behavior, and water availability across vast geographical areas. The herders who successfully navigate these complex environmental factors develop almost supernatural abilities to predict weather changes and locate optimal grazing areas under varying conditions. This accumulated wisdom enables nomadic communities to thrive in environments where less knowledgeable peoples would quickly perish from exposure, starvation, or predation. The adaptation strategies that nomadic peoples employ to cope with environmental changes and external pressures demonstrate remarkable flexibility and resilience that enables survival under conditions that would destroy less adaptable societies. The ability to modify migration routes, adjust herd compositions, and alter social arrangements in response to changing circumstances represents one of the greatest strengths of nomadic civilization. These adaptive capabilities enable nomadic communities to survive drought, political upheaval, and military pressure while maintaining their essential cultural characteristics and independence. The legacy systems that preserve nomadic knowledge and traditions across generations ensure that essential survival skills and cultural values continue to guide communities despite the pressures of changing environments and external influences. The oral traditions that carry this knowledge combine practical instruction with spiritual guidance, creating educational frameworks that prepare young people for adult responsibilities while connecting them to ancestral wisdom. These transmission systems represent one of humanity's most successful approaches to preserving complex cultural knowledge without reliance on written materials or formal institutions. As our gentle exploration of nomadic life draws toward its peaceful conclusion, we find ourselves marveling at the intricate sophistication hidden within what outsiders might dismiss as simple pastoral existence, understanding that these remarkable people created one of history's most successful adaptations to challenging environmental conditions through knowledge, skill, and social cooperation that enabled them to thrive across the vast expanses of the Eurasian steppes for countless generations. Generations. The autumn migrations that herald the approach of winter represent perhaps the most critical period in the nomadic calendar, when families must demonstrate their highest levels of skill and coordination to ensure survival through the harsh months ahead. The timing of these movements requires precise calculation that balances the animal's need for final fattening on summer grass against the approaching weather patterns that can trap unprepared travelers in deadly blizzards. The experienced herders who guide these migrations possess an almost mystical ability to read subtle environmental signs that indicate the optimal moment for departure, understanding that leaving too early wastes precious grazing time, while delaying too long risks catastrophic losses if winter storms arrive ahead of schedule. The preparation for autumn migration transforms the entire rhythm of camp life as families work with desperate intensity to complete the countless tasks required for winter survival. The women accelerate their food preservation activities, knowing that any delays in processing the final harvests of summer abundance could mean starvation during the lean months ahead. Every scrap of meat must be properly dried, every drop of milk transformed into durable cheese, and every edible plant gathered and preserved according to techniques that have sustained nomadic peoples through countless generations of seasonal hardship. The selection of animals for the autumn slaughter represents one of the most difficult decisions facing nomadic families, as they must balance immediate food needs against the maintenance of breeding stock capable of regenerating herds after winter losses. The experienced herders examine each animal with the critical eye of experts who understand that a single poor decision could doom their families to poverty or death. Old animals past their reproductive prime are chosen first, followed by surplus males whose aggressive behavior makes them unsuitable for winter confinement, while the strongest and most fertile animals receive careful protection as the foundation for future prosperity. The butchering process that follows these selections demonstrates the remarkable efficiency with which nomadic peoples utilize every portion of their precious animals, transforming what sedentary societies might consider waste products into essential materials for survival and comfort. The blood is carefully collected and processed into nutritious sausages that provide crucial iron and protein during winter months when fresh food becomes unavailable. The bones are cleaned and carved into tools, needles, and decorative objects that serve practical and aesthetic purposes throughout the long dark season ahead. The hides receive particular attention during this autumn processing, as they will provide the leather and fur garments essential for surviving the bitter cold that characterizes steppe winters. The women work with practiced skill to remove every trace of flesh and fat from the skins, then begin the complex tanning processes that transform raw materials into supple leather capable of withstanding extreme temperature variations. The finest furs are reserved for winter garments that will protect family members during the most dangerous outdoor activities, while lesser quality hides become containers, ropes, and the countless other leather goods that nomadic life requires. The gathering of winter fuel becomes an obsession during these final weeks of autumn preparation, as families work frantically to accumulate the dried dung and whatever wood they can locate to sustain fires through months when combustible materials become buried under snow or impossible to collect. Children who might normally spend their days playing or learning gentle skills find themselves pressed into service as fuel gatherers, their small hands perfectly suited for collecting the smaller pieces of dried dung that adult eyes might overlook in the desperate search for anything that will burn. The psychological preparation for winter isolation requires attention to mental and emotional needs that become critical when families spend months confined together in small spaces under stressful conditions. The storytellers prepare new narratives that will provide entertainment and education during the long evening hours when darkness falls early and outdoor activities become impossible. The musicians practice songs and melodies that will lift spirits during the darkest periods of winter depression, understanding that emotional survival often proves as challenging as physical endurance during the harsh season ahead. The final medical preparations include gathering and processing the medicinal plants and animal products that will provide healthcare throughout winter when injuries and illnesses must be treated using only materials available within the confined winter camps. The traditional healers work intensively during these autumn weeks to prepare remedies for everything from digestive problems caused by the restricted winter diet to respiratory ailments that develop in the smoky interiors of winter shelters. Their knowledge encompasses not only the practical aspects of treatment, but also the spiritual elements that nomadic peoples believe essential for complete healing. The winter camp selection process involves careful evaluation of multiple potential sites based on criteria that balance protection from weather extremes against accessibility for essential activities like water collection and emergency evacuation. The ideal winter location provides natural windbreaks that deflect the devastating storms that sweep across the steppes, while also offering southern exposure that maximizes solar heating during the brief daylight hours of winter months. Water sources must remain accessible despite freezing temperatures, while the surrounding terrain must provide adequate space for animal shelters and fuel storage areas. The construction of winter facilities begins as soon as the final location is chosen, with families working together to build the shelters and storage areas that will determine their survival chances during the months ahead. The animal shelters receive priority attention as livestock losses during winter can destroy family prosperity for years to come. These structures must provide protection from wind and cold while allowing adequate ventilation to prevent the respiratory problems that can develop when animals are confined in poorly designed enclosures. The reorganization of living spaces for winter occupancy requires careful planning that maximizes warmth retention while providing adequate room for the extended family groups that often share shelters during the coldest months. The interior arrangements must accommodate not only sleeping and cooking areas, but also workspace for the craft activities that will occupy much of the winter season. Storage areas for food, fuel, and essential equipment must remain accessible despite snow accumulation, while being protected from the moisture and temperature fluctuations that could spoil precious supplies. The establishment of winter routines begins even before the harshest weather arrives, as families gradually adjust their daily schedules to accommodate the shorter daylight hours and increased time spent in shelter maintenance activities. The morning tasks must be reorganized to ensure that essential animal care occurs during the warmest part of each day, while evening activities extend later into the night as families make maximum use of artificial lighting to accomplish necessary work. The careful rationing of fuel and food begins immediately, with daily consumption calculated against estimated winter duration and available supplies. The social hierarchies within winter camps become more pronounced as the stress of confinement and resource scarcity tests relationships that might remain stable under normal nomadic conditions. The leadership skills of family elders prove crucial during this period, as they must mediate disputes while maintaining morale during months when external activities provide no outlet for frustrations and tensions. The traditional respect for age and wisdom becomes particularly important when decisions about resource allocation could determine who survives and who perishes during the harshest periods of winter hardship. The educational activities that intensify during winter confinement serve multiple purposes beyond simple knowledge transmission, providing mental stimulation that helps combat the depression and anxiety that can develop during months of limited activity and social isolation. The children who might chafe under the restrictions of winter life find themselves engaged in intensive learning experiences that prepare them for adult responsibilities while providing entertainment that makes confinement more bearable. The traditional stories and songs that fill winter evenings carry practical information disguised as entertainment, teaching survival skills and cultural values through memorable narratives. The craft production that occupies much of wintertime serves economic purposes that extend far beyond immediate family needs, creating trade goods that will provide access to essential items when spring trading opportunities resume. The quality of winter craftwork often determines family prosperity during the following year, as superior products command premium prices, while inferior goods may find no market at all. The competition between families to produce the finest textiles, weapons, and decorative objects drives innovation and skill development that benefits entire communities. The spiritual practices that sustain nomadic communities through winter hardships reflect deep understanding of the psychological support required to maintain hope and social cohesion during periods when survival seems uncertain. The daily rituals that mark the passage of time provide structure and meaning to lives that might otherwise seem dominated by mere endurance of suffering. The seasonal ceremonies that celebrate the gradual return of daylight help families maintain faith that spring will eventually arrive, despite the seemingly endless progression of bitter cold and darkness. The animal management techniques employed during winter months demonstrate sophisticated understanding of livestock behavior and nutritional needs under extreme conditions. The careful rotation of animals between different shelter areas prevents overcrowding while ensuring that each animal receives adequate protection from weather extremes. The supplemental feeding programs that sustain livestock through periods when natural forage becomes unavailable require precise calculation of nutritional requirements against available feed supplies. The weather prediction skills that guide winter survival decisions rely on accumulated knowledge that combines practical observation with traditional beliefs about natural patterns and supernatural influences. The ability to anticipate severe storms provides crucial warnings that enable families to secure shelters and protect animals before dangerous conditions develop. The recognition of subtle signs that indicate temporary warming periods allows for essential outdoor activities that would be impossible during the worst weather. The communication systems that maintain contact between scattered winter camps demonstrate remarkable ingenuity in overcoming the isolation that winter conditions impose on nomadic communities. The signal fires that carry messages across vast snow-covered landscapes provide early warning of emergencies, while also maintaining the social connections that prevent complete isolation during months when travel becomes extremely dangerous. The messenger systems that operate despite winter hazards ensure that critical information about weather, predators, and human threats reaches all members of scattered communities. And so, dear friend, as the eternal winter of the steppes finally gives way to another spring renewal, our gentle journey through the remarkable world of Mongol nomadic life draws to its peaceful close. We've witnessed the intricate dance of survival, cooperation, and wisdom that sustained these extraordinary people across centuries of challenge and change. Tonight, may you drift into restful sleep, carrying with you the quiet rhythms of felt tents and crackling fires, the soft sounds of grazing herds, and the timeless understanding that true strength often lies not in conquest, but in the patient art of adaptation and community. Sleep well, knowing that somewhere across the vast grasslands, these ancient patterns continue their eternal cycle beneath the endless sky.